it wasn't a problem. Well, I didn't think it was a problem, maybe, because I was enjoying it. It wasn't hindering my life.
The stuff I had was good. It was probably like some of the best you can get.
There were sort of plates with Coke handed around on them. It was paradise.
I prided myself on being able to keep up with the guys.
Every night was Friday night, loads of cocaine and drinking.
Just couldn't believe that something could make you feel that incredible.
Every night, I would take pills or cocaine.
I was hanging out with, world-famous people. In many ways, I was living the dream.
Being around it all the time and seeing it all the time, I thought, hey, that looks like something I might be able to do.
You're so high a lot of the time on stage singing about the come down. When you get off stage, it's like, I don't like it. Do you know what I mean? You've just had an ultimate high, man. So then, what's there? Do you know what I mean? Oh, let me do a line, pick you up again, here we go. And then you're off all night again, and you're doing the same thing the next night, and the same thing the next night, and the same thing the next night. My mum started getting me into dancing and would take me to like Bethnal Green. I'd get into tap dancing because I was a good dancer. I went to stage school for a bit, and the teacher there was like, I know someone that's putting a band together. I was like, boy, man, like, get out of here, man. Went along, ended up going along, and I got it, and that's where it started. So getting 5 was a good thing for me, much needed. Simon Cowell was at A&R, a manager, the same guy that put the Spice Girls together, like, how could you lose? Even at 16, when I was living with the boys in the house, I was still very good. I was still quite clean. I was like teetotal, man. I had sips of stuff, but never liked beer, never did anything whiskey or strong or anything like that. The drinking, I guess, for them guys was just standard. I guess wherever they come from, that's just their thing. While I was getting into the drink thing, cannabis was in the air as well, though. When I had, like, my first smoke, I remember, like, oh, man, that's me. Like, that's what I need. Takes the edge off everything. A lot of my raps that I wrote in the band, I was hyped. You know what I'm saying? And people bopping to them, like, I'm like, yeah. But that's like everyone.
I wanted to be like these older kids, wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of, not wanting to be the one left out. Seeing my brother come home from raving and like wonder why has he been all night? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? And kind of wanting to be a part of that. Probably tried ecstasy at the end of 14. And as soon as I tried it, I loved it. I had this quarter of a pill, and then I came up on this pill so hard. Just couldn't believe that something could make you feel that incredible. That's why it's called ecstasy. I got an audition for Hollyoaks, and basically, yeah, I couldn't believe it. It changed my life. Got to the read-through, and afterwards there was a big party, and one of the guys, I won't name names, just went welcome and went like that with my hand, and I opened it up and bam, there it was, cocaine.
My first film, I believe, was when I was 5 years old. By the time I was 10, I'd pretty much finished my TV career and started going into more just films. When I was on the set of Stand By Me, there was an engineer who, at the time, I thought was really cool. River and I thought he was really cool. And we went to his room, and when we were in his room, we spotted a bong in the closet, and we both asked, what's that? And he said, oh, this is a bong. And we said, what's it for? He said, smoking weed. And River said, oh, my family does that, I know about that. And, we asked a bunch of questions. He said, yeah, you want to try some? Go ahead. Then a few years later, I moved in with my father. My father was a regular weed smoker, and eventually I told him I was smoking now. He had this giant smile on his face, and he said, I always looked forward to the day that I could get high with my son. Being around it all the time and seeing it all the time, I thought, hey, that looks like something I might be able to do. Obviously, because I was doing it a lot, I brought it to all my friends in the business because we were all hanging out together. I was like, hey, look at this new thing I've discovered. And they were all doing it with me.
I just kind of knew the myth of cocaine. I knew the stuff that made it kind of like magic and exciting. I just had the associations with it that you get from the media, that it's a glamorous drug, that it's a drug that celebrities take. When I graduated, I got a job straight away at the BBC, and somebody took me to the Groucho Club, and it was at the Groucho Club that I took my first line of cocaine. I knew from that first line that cocaine was going to be part of my life. It was transformative. What I will say about television is it is a very work hard, party hard environment, and I prided myself on being able to keep up with the guys. I could drink a bottle of spirits and still be standing because I was doing 2 grams of cocaine to offset that bottle of spirits. I would say to myself many times, oh, I'm just going to do half a wrap. That half a wrap of cocaine never sat on the shelf. I always did it, and then it became grams, and I would always do the whole gram, and then it became need another gram at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it would be stay up all night, and then it would be I just don't want to come down.
Talk over, gin and teacups, leaves on the lawn.
Culturally, I don't think there was a band that had a bigger impact around that time, in that decade. I really don't. Notoriety kind of overshadowed the music quite a bit. I guess we took a lot of risks travelling around with lots of drugs on us, but yeah, at this point there was always, yeah, it was, without that I couldn't function, so it was less like, that's why we kept getting busted by the police a lot, because they knew we'd always have it on us, which was not intelligent. You know, since a young kid, always wanted to be in a band and play and make music and go out and play and tour and see the world. Doing that and not being able to appreciate it because my whole world has shrunk, you know, and just so addicted. As a kid, start listening to music, and then most young people come across a joint at a young age. So I think I was 11, so I had smoke on a spliff. And it made the music sound better at that time, you know. And then, so that became a focus. I was young, so it wasn't glamorous, it was about tripping in Morden Park, do you know what I mean? Looking back, I think it just felt really good. It was such a good time, early 90s, being really young. Hadn't got to the point where there was any glamour attached to it yet. It wasn't so problematic either. It was just friends, making music, being social, and there was normally some drugs about, you know.
I think I was quite a shame-based child, quite fearful. All I was looking to do is fit in, but I don't think I ever knew myself enough to just be myself, and therefore I had lots of masks, lots of different faces. I went to work and live in Ibiza. You know, if someone mentioned Ibiza, I was like, yeah, let's go there. And I started taking drugs out there. When I found cocaine, I could drink for longer, stay out for longer. I felt a bit sober, I felt in control, I felt quite powerful on it. And because I hung around with other people that did that, I assumed that it was okay. Every night, I would take pills or cocaine, and obviously the tolerance built up over that time.
I started drinking more heavily at about the age of 15 or 16. Certainly when I was 13, I was leaving a school at which I was the best at everything. I really excelled, and I went into a much bigger school where my sort of levels of excellence and my expectations of myself suddenly sort of paled into insignificance. I was distinctly average, and my father, I suppose, shelling out an enormous amount of money for this school, wanted the same results, and I wasn't able to deliver. Come 16, 17, 18, I'd found cocaine. Other boys in my year were mucking around with Tipp-Ex and aerosol. And there was I, one weekend, scoring a couple of lines of Charlie down in the town. I felt I could do no wrong on it. All I wanted was to sort of fight for Queen and Country. It's what my father had done. It's what 2 of my siblings had done. Sort of wear a uniform, travel the world, meet interesting people. I went off and tried to do an army scholarship, and my eyesight failed. I was suddenly staring at a blank canvas, and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know which end of the paintbrush to hold. I just wanted to snort cocaine. It stopped me worrying about the now. It stopped me worrying about the reality. It created a new reality that I could thrive in, away from the dark failings of my day-to-day existence.
I always wanted to be a mummy. I had a baby at 15, 16. And my parents came to me and said, if you're going to do something with your life, we'll put your daughter in the private nursery. So yeah, I was like, right, okay, I'll go and do nursing. I thought, I want my daughter to have a better life. It was a typical family, nice house, with a white picket fence, nice car at the door. 2 parents that worked, myself and my husband worked, and we were just a normal family. My parents took my daughter most weekends, so usually no children about, so we'd party. I would maybe take a tablet or a bit of speed. And then come a Monday, I'd go back to night shift, usually dying, not knowing what I was doing, but thinking I'm all right, so nobody knows, and it's only recreational drugs. Nobody ever said anything to me. Maybe thought I got a hangover. Society tells you it's all right to have a hangover.
I've definitely made a lot of friends through taking drugs. How it started was definitely through probably drinking at first at school, you know, feeling uncomfortable, feeling anxious. You know, I was at a state school for quite a long time and then went from state school to private school at 13, and that kind of contrast was quite hard. You know, I was quite out of place. They were kind of talking a different language to me almost. You know, there's a lot of things I didn't understand. It was dreadfully awkward and uncomfortable, and they all seemed to know what was going on, and I had absolutely no idea. You know, it was really uncomfortable. I guess I arrived with a little bit of stigma that I needed to kind of shake off, really, and definitely drinking and smoking, and, you know, quite quickly after that, drugs was you know, enabled me to do that. And always have a block of hash if someone wanted to buy one, and that was quite, you know, I felt really comfortable in that role. You know, I liked kind of walking around thinking I was Tony Montana with my little blocks of hash. That felt pretty good. And, you know, I suddenly turned from, you know, an indie kid with long hair, scuffing his heels with a spliff in his mouth, to being a raver and talking about amphetamines quite a lot of the time. When you turn up at a different party or rave, people say, oh, what kind of pills have you got? You know, how many pills have you taken? You know, there's always something to talk about. It felt quite special to be part of this kind of underground brotherhood, I say. You know, that was definitely the incentive behind it.
From that first night, I couldn't just do one line. I never did one line of cocaine. If I did one line, I wanted to do another and another and another. By the time I got to work at Children's BBC, I was living 2 lives. I would show up at work on a bicycle, having cycled from the East End of London. I would go to the canteen and eat super healthy food. So what people were seeing was one aspect of me. What they weren't seeing was what happened at the weekend at that point. Clubbing and partying all Friday night into Saturday morning, sleeping all day, going out Saturday evening, partying and clubbing right into Sunday morning, then going to the clubs on the Thames, and then crashing Sunday afternoon, being in a terrible, terrible state on Monday morning.
Hollyoaks was like money, university with money. It's like being at uni with money, but you were also on TV 3 times a week, and you're also suddenly famous. What the is fame? If we had the day off the next day, like we didn't have to shoot, I would party that night before, drinking Jack Daniels, doing some lines, playing pool, talking. In that moment, you're talking stuff that maybe you wanted to offload, that you could never really offload. I'm extrovert. I don't need cocaine. I'm much better without it. Because my brain's like that. It didn't need to be like that, you know? For me, it became, you know, more of a regular thing, and I wanted to do it. I couldn't wait to do it. If we had a day off, when we got a day off, yes! That meant, right, get the gear in. It wasn't a problem. Well, I didn't think it was a problem, maybe, because I was enjoying it. It wasn't hindering my life.
Two or 3 years into the band, I guess I just started exploring. I can't put all of the boys in this. I can only talk for myself, but we were in situations where it was available, it was there, and the first thing being cocaine. What's that? That became a part of the routine with the drink as well. They go hand in hand. Stuff like that, man. So it's everywhere. Even the celebs are at the highest level, like I've been with, on certain big actors and stuff that like I've done lines with and stuff. So it's everywhere. It's like in the industry. Don't tell me it isn't, man. Don't tell me it isn't.
Rifling through my father's stuff, we found a big black briefcase, which contained a myriad of different options to alleviate stress, shall we say. And my lovely, faithful assistant was happy to introduce them all to me and explain to me what each of them did. So we tried all of those. I really got my cocaine habit going. Any of the responsible people in my life at the time, like, say, Joel Schumacher or Richard Donner, the people that were the helms of the films that I was doing and things like that, Joe Dante, they have all had talks with me at that time. Everybody was concerned. They could see what was going on, and they would sit me down and say, look, we think there might be a problem, and you should probably address this now before it becomes a worse problem.
Just after leaving school and playing in bands in London, cocaine was around in the clubs and bars. It did seem like everyone was doing it. Around 2003, met these musicians. We all got in a room together, started playing. It was a very exciting time for me. I felt really fulfilled at that point, actually. Heroin was just a split second of a stupid decision. I remember having a few drinks in someone's house, and somebody said, "Have you tried this?" I was like, "No." And it was the first time I ever tried it. Someone shot me up with it. It made me feel extremely comfortable, and there wasn't that erratic and crazy, misdirected energy that came with cocaine and drinking. It was like, I think within 3 months I had a full-on heroin habit. You know, it gets you by the neck, and then you're an addict from the second you wake up. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to get.
Crack and heroin came into my life through visiting friends at, quite a prestigious university. Just wonderful, wonderful chaps. And I went and visited them once, and they were all smoking crack and heroin, and that was, I remember being really disappointed because it wasn't that kind of happy atmosphere, everyone jumping around and getting excited. It was quite a miserable affair, to be honest. It didn't make it look very fun at all. And I guess the difference between me as an addict and them was that it was something they could try once, and still get incredible degrees. But being the addict that I was, having it been slightly normalised by people I really admired, I went back home, and it wasn't long after that I realised how easy it was to get heroin.
I decided I want to go to LA. Massive De Niro, Pacino fan. That was the dream. I need to be another character now. Here we go, big movies, yeah. I've also got a massive addiction with marijuana and cocaine. What the f? And out there, the drugs were a lot stronger. You know, I was good, but the reason why I wasn't amazing was because the drugs were hindering my ability to be the best. And the more rejection, the more I used. Regret and resentment and rejection is a recipe for disaster when you're an addict, because you just want to beat yourself up, you just want to yourself, you just want to self-harm.
My disease of addiction was progression. You know, this is what I would do. I would take something for a little while and then stop. You know, I would take ecstasy tablets and speed at the weekends and then stop. And addiction runs through all my family. I had an aunt that was an alcoholic. I had an uncle who was an addict and died through the illness. I was in a guy's house and he was smoking a joint and he offered me and I smoked a joint. That wasn't normal dope, that was heroin. And I thought, I liked that feeling. I liked that glow that it gave me. I liked that, I really did. I thought, I'm going to try that again. I wanted another baby because in my eyes, at 16, I didn't take it all in. I was so young, I didn't know what was going on. And at 20, I really wanted another child. And I just could not fall pregnant, no matter how much we tried. I remember told to stop smoking and stop using drugs, all sorts. And I did, I stopped everything. And I fell pregnant with twins. And I have a miscarriage. And it devastated me. It absolutely devastated me. I can remember the day I walked out the hospital, I went and scored heroin. The town where I live, everybody knows each other. And there was one girl in particular that had been using heroin for years and years and years. You know, I'd phoned the girl knowing I was going to go and score with her. I never thought about my daughter that day I used. She was the last thing. It was all about me. And right away I used a needle. All the insecurities, bad feelings, everything, that I just stopped instantly stopped. And I remember sitting there wasted, gouching, absolutely wasted, and thinking, I feel all right. And I believe the heroin saved my life, because I think I would have killed myself at that point.
I'm 19, 20, and I come back to the UK, and I land a job at a finance company. You know, I was quite naive. I didn't really know who JP Morgan were. I didn't really get or understand like the prestige of working for them, I guess. At the beginning, I was very good at work. I had a lot of energy because I was on drugs a lot of the time, so that kind of kept me up all night, and you know, and I'd go to work the next day. You know, at the start it was just weekends, and I continued that when I got back home because I'd work all week and then I'd go out all weekend. But what I noticed is those weekends got longer, so I'd start on a Thursday night, not sleep, go to work on a Friday, and then maybe keep using all the way through to the Monday. But because I maintained a job, I really thought I was okay, and the money I was earning would go on drugs, basically.
I think I was funny. I think I was certainly the man that lit up the room. I think I was smart, intelligent, quick-witted. I thought I was popular. In 2008, I'd met my wife-to-be. Love at first sight. I knew she loved me. And that meant I knew I could manipulate her. And so I did. I was taking a gram a day. I was taking it in the morning before I went to work. I was taking throughout the day. I was taking it when I came home and washing it down with booze, which I'd also use throughout the day. I was high on my wedding day. No one knew, except my dealer.
It got to the point where everybody realized that cocaine was a bad thing, and suddenly I had an addiction, and everybody was noticing it. Everybody was looking at me saying, "You've got a problem." And I took great offense to it, because I'm like, wait, you're all the guys that I was doing it with just a week ago, and before we were all good and fine, but now I've got a problem, and you're the ones that are going to rehab. And I noticed there was a lot of pointing fingers and stuff like that, people trying to pin me as the bad guy. So 17, I was introduced to heroin and became a full-fledged junkie, although I never shot up, but you know, same thing. I mean, if you're addicted to heroin, you're addicted to heroin. Heroin was definitely the one that brought me to my knees. Heroin was the one I couldn't kick on my own. That's probably what shocked me the most about it. Was I'd been through the cocaine thing, got over it, I was done with it, I was fine. But when it came to heroin, I couldn't just disarm it that easily. When it came time to try and stop, unfortunately, it didn't stop. And I had to deal with those consequences.
I was working for a hair product company. I was very lucky to get that position. I was at the bottom of a really big ladder that could have led to some really wonderful things. But, you know, after 12 months, it was getting in the way of my drug life. It's quite easy to recognise the fact that you're a heroin addict, because when you take a drug that punishes you physically for not taking it any longer, and you're buying it from someone that's got hardly any teeth and blood coming out of their toes, you think, oh, this is a really bad idea, but you still can't stop, then you know that you're an addict, for sure. You know you've got a problem.
My girlfriend, she started calling me a junkie, which I thought was very bloody rude of her. Because I didn't see myself as a junkie. I thought only heroin addicts were junkies. But she was right, I was a cocaine junkie. I was earning $2,500 a week. I was directing big shows that people know about. I had VIP memberships. I was hanging out with world-famous people. In many ways, my life was working. In many ways, I was living the dream. I swore off cocaine and thought, no, I'm just going to drink from now on. I'll just avoid cocaine. I got a job at MTV, and I went to a party. A friend said to me as I walked into the room, do you want a line? I said, no, thanks, I'm not doing it. Went to the bar, got a drink, got another drink, then went and found my friend and said, here, take me to the loo, I want that line. Because I didn't realize that addiction, you know, uses one substance to get you to your drug of choice. You know, alcohol for me was the gateway drug that took me to cocaine.
When I was using heroin, the relationship I was in was quite fiercely codependent, and you know, our whole relationship really was based on using. The process of trying to stop together was the romance in it, really. That was kind of what the relationship was based on. And you know, go away and kind of sweat it out and get clean. I've done rattles and clucks in Spain, you know, into 2 Greek islands, Egypt, South Africa, Wales. And then as soon as you got clean, you just end up drinking and fighting and arguing and not really liking each other at all, you know. And it just kind of felt quite natural to get back into heroin almost immediately as soon as we got home, so we could have this dream of getting clean again.
Because we had that image of a bad boy band, you get f***ed up. That's what we do, it's what you do. Kind of expected almost. There was supply, always. So you kind of, it is forced on you, even if you don't want it. Nobody once said, stop, man, it's getting a bit far, it's going too much, easy on the drink, or don't do that, or don't touch that. If anything, we'd ask them to go and get it for us and it'd come. That's up, man. So 5 years into the band, 20 million sold.
Today is the day that 5 ended.
It's an end of a chapter, you know what I'm saying? Halfway through a book. When we did actually split, felt a void at first. Just kept it all inside. Resentments, whatever. Just from the band, from my family, from whatever. Just carried it all with me. And that's, I guess, what the drinking and the drugs was just numbing it all. And I just find friends almost to replace them. Like, all right, you be Jay, you be like whoever, and just hang out. And I actually got to a point, I remember, when I pay people to like just hang out with me and just do drugs with me.
Once we started playing live, then it really, yeah, I guess it escalated. I'd never actually felt safe if I didn't have any. If I didn't have mine, I felt really scared. Without that, I couldn't function. So it was just like, I remember being so paranoid that I couldn't get out of the tour bus to go and play, you know, to the really big audiences, and freaking out on stage once you do play, and like paranoid and like not being able to, and it's very dysfunctional, you know. The people that worked with us were all our friends, and they weren't generally the healthiest types, to be honest, you know. There's a lot of addicts who worked with us as well. So yeah, it became like a travelling freak show. It was heavy. It wasn't conducive to a healthy touring lifestyle. But it sounds really messed up to say it, but I didn't want it any other way at that time. I didn't have a switch where I had to be like, I stopped doing this. I couldn't. Tried to go and get treatment sorted out a few times by various people, but it didn't work. And I isolated myself for about the next 5 years. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it, that is?
I very much was a mother who put tea on the table, even when I was using and fucked. My husband would go out to work in the morning, my daughter would go to school, and I would go and use, come back, sleep all day, and then before they were due in at, say, 4 o'clock, I would get up and hoover, boys. And it was that continuously, and always chasing the bag, always chasing the heroin. The more heroin I took, the less noises in my head. So the pain was always there as an emotional pain, but eventually it became physical pain because you needed heroin to be normal, get up and do stuff. I would say to my husband, I'm going to see the girls this weekend, I'm going on a spa weekend, and I would go and sit in a house in Dunfermline and use heroin all weekends. One of the times I'm in this girl's flat and she had to keep my heart going until the ambulance got there. I woke up with paramedics putting adrenaline in my arm. I quite liked the overdosing, so I liked the feeling it gave me. But for the first couple of times that I did overdose, I didn't really use again for a while because I was scared. But not scared of dying, just scared that my husband was going to find out.
Genevieve fell pregnant, and this is one of those tipping points in life where people decide they're going to get cleaned up. They're going to sort their lives out. I took Genevieve to hospital, and instead of sort of ringing anyone to make sure they all knew that Jen was okay and safe, I know that the first call I made was to my dealer to come up and deliver me some drugs. I can look at it objectively, and I know how much of a mess I was in. But at the time, I thought that I was functioning. I thought that I was doing really well. Again, my concern wasn't for my wife, for the newborn. It was just whether anyone knew I was high. I was quite happy to actually feed the baby during the night. It gave me something to do while I got high. Having a little baby in my arms, and trying to do coke and drink at the same time.
I couldn't stop using cocaine. I think my real low point was being in LA on my own on my birthday, in the Mondrian Hotel, doing copious amount of cocaine on my own, just sitting on the floor in the bathroom, just crying, just like doing a line and crying. No one wanted to be near me. I didn't want to be near anyone. You know, there's the balcony, I'm looking over and I'm just like, man, is this what you're not enjoying this? How is this enjoyable? This is not enjoyable. This is rubbish. This is just But I must have done 50 grand. Couldn't stop. Just couldn't stop.
With cocaine, it's an obsession of the mind. Whereas heroin, it's physically addicting. It gets into your bloodstream. It becomes part of your DNA, part of your makeup. And then when it's gone, your body just craves it. It thrives for it. It's called junk for a reason. I mean, it literally is junk that you're putting into your body. You don't even realize that you're becoming addicted to it. And it only takes 3 days. People can try heroin one time. You might like it. And if you liked it the 2 days in a row, you might go, oh, let's do it one more day tomorrow just for fun, which is what happened to me. On the 4th day, you say, that's enough. I don't want to get out of control with this. Too late. By the 4th day, you're addicted. You get sick. You get violently ill. It's a very shocking thing when suddenly you realize you're no longer in control. You know, I would score this heroin downtown LA from Mexican gangsters. I thought I was hiding it rather well. I thought that I had it all under control. But you can't hide it. Your life becomes a tumultuous mess. It's literally a snowball effect.
I was a journalist. I had a really active life, travelled all over the world, you know, living the life. And then literally overnight in 2004, I was struck down with acute on chronic pancreatitis. It's very, very painful because you actually end up digesting your own body. I was put onto a morphine drip. I remember one point in hospital telling them that in between doses of morphine, I was experiencing kind of delirium, muscle spasms, sickness. I was having classic withdrawal symptoms while I was in hospital and nobody recognised it. Oh, I left hospital a heroin addict, absolutely. I mean, heroin is diamorphine. The times that I was discharged, I was sent home with a repeat prescription for fentanyl lozenges. The fentanyl lozenges were kind of like children's lollies. They had sort of sugar and they tasted of strawberry. You stick it between your gum and the inside of your mouth. The doctors at the London hospital told me to take a maximum of 8 of the fentanyl lozenges a day for breakthrough pain. I managed to stay on that 8 maximum, the lozenges, daily for about 3 months, maybe just under. And there came a day, and I remember getting to the cupboard and opening it up and taking out an extra lozenge. It was like getting into a warm bath. It was that kind of, thank God. It's a very potent drug. I've read different quantifiers about it, but it's somewhere between 50 and 100 times stronger than heroin.
Suddenly I'm being offered a lot of money to go and sit on a beach in Fiji. It was called Celebrity Love Island. I get there and it was horrific the first 2 nights. I was proper withdrawing. I didn't know what the hell had hit me. Just shivering, shaking, sweat pouring out of me, and I'm thinking I'm going into like some crazy fit. I just didn't know what was going on with me because I don't think in 10 years I'd ever detoxed. You know, and I really enjoyed that show as much as it was crazy. I was more famous from that than I had been out of 4 years on a soap opera. I couldn't understand it. And I didn't know how to handle that. I couldn't handle it. I started using again.
Well, for the last 6 months of JP Morgan, I don't think I slept very much at all. I became really obnoxious and quite arrogant. I became quite nasty, and all I really cared about was how much money I could earn and how much money I could get from anyone that I could get it from, because I needed to buy my drugs. Injecting heroin and things like that was definitely an addict, and as long as I wasn't doing that, I wasn't an addict. You know, I didn't pay the bills that I needed to pay, and, you know, it was all about getting more money to get more drugs. Thousands, absolute thousands. When I was working one day, I was really cornered. My brother was hassling me to pay the mortgage that was really in arrears, which I owed because I owed the back rent on it. And my best friend, I owed her a couple of £1,000 or a few £1,000s because I'd borrowed so much money off her for my drug addiction. And you know, I thought, I've got no way of, you know, paying these. And, you know, I was like, the only way I could do it is on a company credit card, and, you know, but if I do that, you know, I'm bound to get caught and my life will be over. And I took loads of cocaine, and I did it.
I was kind of 3 years into that cycle of trying to stop using heroin, and then I did go to my mum and say, look, this is the situation. You know, I was on my knees crying and kind of begging for help. And she helped me find the money and got me to Australia, which I thought would be a safe enough distance from heroin to be free and to be clean and live a better life. Part of my detox involved taking painkillers, and that kind of carried on into the first, you know, 2 or 3 weeks of me arriving in another country. You know, I carried on taking the tablets that I had. Sadly, those tablets are similar to heroin in a lot of ways. They do grab to the same receptors, and you do get that warm feeling. When you realise how dependent you are on that, on the prescription pill, and you think, oh, well, it's only a tablet, I'll stop taking it, you get the same illness as you do when you stop doing heroin. I was back where I started.
From that sort of 3-month point where I took the extra lozenge, it only really took a few days before I started going up. So within a week, I was on 11 a day. And then within a couple more weeks, I was on 15 a day, and then 20 and 25, all the way up to 60 lozenges a day. I thought it was the only logical option. I just had to keep taking more because I was metabolising it so fast that I just had to take more, because otherwise I'd be in pain. So I was going to my GP 2 or 3 times a week, and I would basically do anything to get that green slip of paper in my hand. I mean, he knew within 3 weeks that I was addicted and that pretty much I'd been dependent on opioids for a very long time. I knew I was locked in, even though I would never have admitted that I was a drug addict. Most nights I would go into cold turkey overnight. So what I did was I made sure I had towels underneath me and on top of my pillow, because I would sweat through as the drugs were leaving my body overnight. If I did cut down, then I would get to a point where the withdrawals were too overwhelming on my own in the cottage. I would see devils in the beams and I would hear orchestras coming out of the plug sockets, you know, so I really did have that opioid delirium going on. I remember screaming in the doctor's surgery because they wouldn't give me double the amount to cover me over the Christmas break at one point, and I was like, well, I'm going to go into withdrawal.
So I started researching natural alternatives to heroin. I came across this stuff called kratom. It's a leaf from Thailand, it's an opioid. It was so easy to buy. You buy them online, get next day delivery. That led to further research of drugs you can buy online, research chemicals. It was like methamphetamine mixed with really bad acid. Maybe one substance would get banned and they would get around it by changing part of the chemical. It was like a catalogue. You see this stuff online, like APVT, APVP, and you'd be like, not even know what they are, but I'll try that one. And shoot them up. A mixture of uppers and downers, and shoot this stuff up and judge by if my heart was going too fast, have the ambulance on speed dial. And there's a couple of times I woke up with paramedics around me. I actually woke up sectioned. I didn't know what happened. I was in a psychosis for a few days, apparently. There was blood everywhere. I don't know actually what happened. I sobered up in hospital, and it took 2 weeks, and I still wasn't right. Imagine in a really dark, alternate world. There's no, like, I know I'm on drugs. I know this is weird. I know that this is not real. It's just like, oh, the world is terrifying. What's happening? My resilience had gone, which maybe is a good thing, because I'm like, I need to stop, give up, stop. I need help. I need help.
I became the person who drinks and uses 24/7. I couldn't stop. I was completely powerless. Each day was like Groundhog Day. I wake up thinking, I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to use cocaine today. I just could not stop. One morning, I was still up first thing in the morning, and the only thought going through my head was, I'm going to go to the River Thames. I'm going to jump in. Because that's the only thing that I could think of to end the nightmare. And it was a nightmare. And thank God, and I don't know how this happened, but my girlfriend, who was 3 floors up, heard the door and ran downstairs and said, where are you going?
I'm doing a detour and I'm suddenly like near a dealer's that I know, and I stopped and I got some coke, and I said, oh, like I really feel now when I do the coke, I need something to come down. I said, yeah, I'll just take a bit of that. And it looked a bit light brown, and I didn't really know what it was. And I don't know how to do heroin, and I don't know how to smoke it. So what do I know how to do? I know how to snort. I sniffed it, and I was sniffing it away. And I got back to my parents. I said, Mum and Dad, I feel tired, I'm gonna go to bed. And I got in my bed, and I must have just passed out. All I know is that my mum could hear me making these noises that sounded like snoring but wasn't. It was actually me gasping on my last breath. She tried to wake me up and she couldn't. No matter what, she just could not wake me up. And apparently there was an ambulance just parked down the road, and they called the ambulance, put me in this ambulance, and they're like saying to my parents, like, I'm like, he's gone, like he's gone. Luckily the ambulance just thought, this has got to be heroin. And they gave me the reversal. It's like the Pulp Fiction type, and suddenly I just went, whoa! And I just woke up, and I just was in the back of the ambulance, and I just remember, all I remember seeing is my dad at the doors of the ambulance, just looking at me, furious, furious, furious.
I had grown more and more tired of this facade that I was supplying to everybody. It all came to a head. It was, I disappeared for 5 days. I got drunk, I got high. I no longer had a place on earth. I put a rope around my neck. Death was there. And I slipped off a riverbank. And just remember the darkness closing in around me, and I was thinking, this is just surreal. And the branch above me was not supporting my weight. My toes were touching the ground. I couldn't even get my own right. I got home. My father-in-law was the first person I saw. He thought I'd just been on a bender for 5 days. He didn't know the half of it. Genevieve came home shortly afterwards. We fought. I seem to remember having a fairly comprehensive discussion with my wife and my father-in-law about the situation, about the dealers, about the drugs. Opening up about the extent and desperation. It was so liberating. And I realized that the darkness was sort of disappearing.
In January 2010, my GP called me in and said, right, that's it. You're on 60 a day, you could die at any minute, basically. I'm cutting you off. You've got 1 more week of fentanyl and then I'm not prescribing you anymore. I was completely terrified. I realised it was over. We applied for inpatient NHS detox and I was refused 3 times because I wasn't homeless and I wasn't offending. So I kind of fell through all the gaps. And I went home, put my cottage on the market, I booked a private rehab, and then I rang my mum and dad and said, we need to talk. My dad was very upset and his first words were, but I've never taken a drug ever.
Do you know what? One of the first people I remember saying to me, like, you're doing a lot, was my dealer. I was an absolute ass, man. Like, I think that's what it does as well. It takes your ego off into the stratosphere. And any spirituality, it's just 180 opposite. I didn't realize that it just became a habit. It just became a little ritual that I would do. Wake up, lemon sorbet with vodka, that was my breakfast. A line, bust some weed, and then we're off, man. That's the morning. You just keep going, you just keep going. I'd go without food to get drugs. And I was so skinny, I thought I looked good. I was like, yeah, man, that's vampire chic. Even one of my band members was like, I thought he was gonna die. He's like, he's telling his wife, like, any minute now, I was just dead. And I kinda knew it as well, really, at the back of my mind. I knew, like, ain't long, man, you keep carrying on this way. I had to just stop myself. I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, I stopped everything, all at the same time, man. Once I made that decision, yeah, I had to go through it. I had to go through it, man.
My mum, my friend, my sister-in-law, my brother, all waiting for me. All I could think was I wanted to run away. Just run, Shell, run. That was what was going. Just run. But where was I going to run to? And my mum says these famous words to me. Do you want help? Because obviously I'm like, on intervention and all that. And I'm like, yes, when really, didn't I? Yes. She said, I'll help you.
When I first committed the fraud, in some ways I think maybe I wanted to get caught, do you know what I mean, on some subconscious level. One of the managers got a statement and they questioned me, and my best thinking at the time said, let's go away, go abroad. And that's what I did. Booked a holiday to go to Ibiza. My plan was to get clean, but that wasn't my best thinking. And then I spoke to my mum and she said the police had been round because obviously JP Morgan reported it. And I just thought, I've got to go back and face this. I went to the solicitors. They called London Police, said she's here, she wants to hand herself in. The solicitor said, oh, you'll probably go to jail for this. About 3 years, 5 years. The next step, someone said, oh, why don't you say, go to rehab and say you're an addict. And I said, oh yeah, that's a good idea to help get off the court case. So I contacted the local treatment centre. They put me in this group. I had to go every week for like 6 weeks, and then I got a place in treatment. It got pointed out pretty quickly. You're in here not to really do it, and you know, you're here to kind of get off a court charge.
I thought it was going to be kind of 5-star food, kind of like a spa with extra therapy. When I got there, I discovered you had to share a bedroom with, in my case, 2 other women. And I was appalled. You're going to take £550 a day and I don't even get my own room. And then I discovered I had to do lots of group therapy, sitting in a room with this bunch of losers. What on earth would I want to do that for? What rehab is actually like, if you really commit to the process of recovery, is the hardest thing you will ever do. One of the sayings in rehab is, the great thing about recovery is you get your feelings back. And the awful thing about recovery is you get your feelings back. I started to realize my addiction goes right back to my childhood. You know, I had some big, dark secrets. I knew I was an intersex person, and I was deeply ashamed of that. When I was told when I was 24 that I was born with internal testes instead of ovaries, that was like a shame bomb in my head. And the idea that I would share that with this group of strangers and that was gonna get me well, I was like, you're kidding, mate.
I thought my problem was heroin. You know, did I think I was an addict? No. In the treatment centre, and for the first week, I lay with a hood over me, lying on the couch, dying, absolutely dying, and puking, and people were coming up and saying, hello, I'm such and such, and I'd be like, off, do not talk to me. And I must have been like this scary Scotswoman with grey hair and curls out to here, and off my head, absolutely and utterly off my head. When you were doing group work, and why you became a heroin addict, that inner stuff they wanted to look at. From the age of 5, there had been a and it was a woman that abused me. And my parents knew nothing about it, nothing.
I did go into a rehab, and when I got there, they said, if you survived, it would only have been for another 3 months. And I was still saying I wasn't an addict. It took me a week of listening to other people saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm an addict, going around the room, talking about their stories. I was saying those things, but I still believed I wasn't addicted. And it was a relief in the end just to actually mean what I was saying and say, yes, I'm an addict. You know, that, yeah, this is done, this is over, and I want to get well now.
I was crying my eyes out when I first walked in. Not because I was, partly because I was traumatised by all the things I'd done to myself, but partly because I was having to let go of drugs. And I couldn't see a life without it. I didn't think there'd be a day in my life which I would go substance-free. I thought abstinence was going to be a truly miserable experience. I thought it was going to be awful. I thought it was going to be a bunch of people hanging out, being miserable with nothing to look forward to. Like, how do you celebrate anything without a drink or a drug?
You know, I did really well. 5 weeks, doing excellent. It was a 6-week course. And then I got a phone call from my agent, and she said, oh, Paul, someone in there has phoned the News of the World, and he divulged all my deepest, darkest secrets of my using my addictions. And I had 1 week, or not even, to complete that rehab and graduate. You graduate, and to graduate, to finish would have been such an amazing thing. Like, you know, they sing a song when you leave and they do this whole big ceremony. And I wanted that so badly. And I couldn't have that because this bastard had sold me out. And I got in a cab and I went to Brixton and I scored a load of drugs, put myself in a hotel and just got off my tits for like the next few days. I could have died. I could have died. I could have overdosed very easily. All in all, I've done 15 rehabs. I'm not proud of it. Yeah, I never completed anything. I didn't complete Hollyoaks, really. I didn't complete LA. Still want to go back there and do it because I don't feel like I've completed it. Well, I haven't. I'm sitting here. Maybe, you know, all these relapses and everything, He's all that stuff.
I always tell people, you know, spirituality is like a bank account. And that's why the 12-step programs tend to work so well. It's all about giving back. The more you give back, the more you help others, the more that you stay focused and positive, the more that you will get positive in return. So when we get sober and we take action and we help other addicts and other alcoholics to get sober, to find that peace, good karma, I guess you could call it, shines back on us and things start to change.
Within 10 days, I think it was, of being in treatment, they cracked me down. From that point forward, I just threw my whole self into recovery and getting well.
You know, it's that fear of the pain that really compelled me into my addiction. It's brutal, it's difficult, it hurts, it's scary, but it's absolutely worth it.
Addictions are always gonna be there, always gonna be there. It's always at the back of your mind, it's always there no matter what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says, there's always a percent, something just there that, not you could, but it's there, it's just there. That life, who you was, never goes away.
The more and more I've done recovery, the more and more I believe in the 12 steps and the fellowships. That's the first step, is that real kind of accepting and admitting, my name is Paul and I'm an addict. It's hard, but once you say it, it's freeing.
I understand now that I do have an illness, you know, or the disease of addiction, some people call it. It is something that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. But whatever it is I have to do, it's not as hard as scoring every day or trying to get drugs every day. Like, that is so much harder than the things I have to do to stay clean.
I stayed in Surrey and I became a postwoman, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, delivering those letters. I was an awful postwoman because every day was like Groundhog Day. I did it for 365 days and it saved my life. And I was so grateful to then start training to become an addiction therapist and to not have to get up at that time.
I've not killed anybody, I've not done anything like that, but I know I've caused addictions. Yeah, I regret that, I do. That's one thing. I've never really thought about having regrets in life. Like, would you regret? Like, nothing really, man. It's made me who I am. Just brought up that and it made me feel like, yeah, that's one thing I've obviously had an effect. I've never really thought about. But,
I'm really trying to rebuild my life now at the moment. Like, really. So what happens this year, next year, I don't know. I have to deal with it as it comes. In the future, going back to doing music, it's not really a worry for me. I feel I know that how I need to deal. I need to be around people who are not doing that.
Everyone seemingly just kind of disappeared after I got sober. I never got that second chance. I was shut down, I was blacklisted, but I never understood why. Still paying the debt, so to speak, for the consequences that I endured.
My daughter hated me. And it took a long, long time to convince her I'm not going to use drugs again. I never woke up one day at 20-something and decided to be a heroin addict. Sitting in my 40s today, that's what I am. And what I've got to do is stay clean and keep that. It's go to meetings.
On the morning of the court case, although I was very grateful to be in recovery, I was absolutely petrified. You know, I don't know if I'm going to prison or not. Then I just had to stand in court, and luckily there was quite a lot of support for me to stay out, and the judge let me stay out, and I had probation, I had to pay the money back, things like that. I've been given a second chance at life here, and I love it. I love this life.
I've got a 4-year-old son that I was told I would never have, that I would never be well enough to have a child. It's incredible what happens when you put the painkillers down.
Mercifully for me, the future only involves the next 24 hours. Cravings, listen, I get cravings still. But I know that cravings last 8 minutes. And I know that if ever I have a bad day, if ever anything goes badly, this too shall pass. It always does. Nothing ever needs to get so bad that I need to pick up a gram of coke.
Hello, my name's Michelle, and I'll be 10 years clean.
My name is Abs, and I've been sober for 5 years.
My name is Catherine, and I've been clean from prescription opioids for 8 years.
My name's Emily, and I've been clean for 7.5 years.
My name's Jamie, and I'm an addict. And I've been clean for 527 days, 1 day at a time.
My name's Jamie, I'm an addict, and I'm 6 months and 8 days clean.
My name's Patrick, and I am clean and been in recovery for almost a year.
My name is Seven, and I'm a very grateful recovering addict, 16 years sober.
My name's Paul and I'm an addict, and I am clean just for today.
My name is Corey Feldman, and I have been free from the addiction of heroin and cocaine for almost 30 years.